Okay, so the second industrial revolution. In the second half of the 19th century, the pace of industrialization quickened, and so did the number of inventions. So historians call this the second industrial revolution. But instead of focusing on textile production and steam power, the second industrial revolution ran on the internal combustion, either the gasoline or diesel engine. It also differed from the initial industrial revolution because there were more inventions related to electrical systems, scientific discoveries, and medicine. And all of these had applications for the mechanization of warfare, which really changed our ideas of war. And we'll see that in the First World War when we start studying that. The first major development in the area of communication was the U.S. invention of the telegraph in the 1840s. And by the late 1850s, a telegraph cable had been extended under the Atlantic Ocean, linking the British Isles to Canada and the U.S. By the 1870s, communication across the Pacific was achieved, and by 1902, the entire global British Empire was connected by telegraph. In 1876, the telephone was invented in the United States, and its popularity was different from the telegraph in that the user needed no special training, so it could be used at home. And then the radio or the wireless telegraph was in its developmental stages near the end of this era. Now, transportation. After the development of the steamboat and the steam locomotive, the next major step in transportation was the electric trolley car, which there's a picture of it right here, and the subterranean transportation system, or the subway. Both were mass transit systems first used in large cities like London, Paris, and New York. The automobile was invented in Germany in the 1880s, but during this era it was mostly an experimental device and an object of curiosity, maybe a plaything for the extremely wealthy. Science and medicine. The modern science of chemistry began in this era, 1750 to 1900, and the systematic studies of chemical compounds and the composition into different forms of matter gave scientists insights into how nature works. Toward the end of the era, scientists were developing chemical compounds in the lab. Some were more powerful fertilizers that were used to grow crops and thus more food more efficiently than before. Advances in medicine in this era included smallpox and rabies vaccinations, which drastically changed the demographics of the world. Sterilization of surgical instruments, and that includes the discovery of antibiotics. This was when penicillin was discovered. Louis Pasteur was doing his work in biology, which led to the pasteurization of dairy products, which definitely increased the safety of those foods. The use of anesthetics and ether during surgery, which was a huge thing. The sterilization of surgical instruments, aspirin, to name a few things. The government oversaw programs that provided clean drinking water in cities, and these and many other examples led to healthier, longer lives in the industrialized world. Now, you had Charles Darwin, and he really shook up a lot of things. He still does today. His investigations of animals in the South Pacific, particularly the Galapagos Islands, led him to conclude that natural selection, not God, determined the viability of species on Earth. He also theorized that humans and apes had similar characteristics and must therefore have common ancestors. But this is not to say that Charles Darwin was not a Christian. In fact, he was a devout Christian. He just, in his own mind, found a way to make science and religion work together. These pronouncements began furious debates about the nature of humanity and its place among animals in the world. His ideas about survival of the fittest in the animal kingdoms led some Europeans to transfer this concept to human civilizations. And social Darwinism was this idea that superior races must naturally defeat inferior ones. And this had enormous implications in the upcoming age of imperialism. And it's really kind of a negative, dark past in human history. So that's it for 5.1. Thanks, guys.